Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all the listeners. This afternoon, I would like to welcome you to the Diamond Girls Rock podcast. This is Pat Pearson, your host. Today, I have with me Mrs. Lossie Pearson. Mrs. Lossie Pearson is a licensed professional counselor. The agency that she owns is Renewed Counseling and Personal Development. Mrs. Pearson has been a counselor for 16 years. Before becoming a counselor, she also is an educator. She worked in the Detroit public school system. She was an educator in the classroom for 19 years. Then she worked as a counselor. Then she retired and opened up Renewed Counseling and Personal Development. Good afternoon, Mrs. Pearson. How are
Good
you?
afternoon. I'm well. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
My pleasure.
Let us know, Mrs. Pearson. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your history.
Well, as Mrs. Pearson stated, I am a retired school counselor, currently working as a mental health counselor. I am working with other agencies, contracting myself out, as well as working with my own agency.
All right, all right. Can you tell us, in our community, the African American community, there's sort of a myth about therapy. Can you tell us, our listeners this afternoon, how can we remove that myth, that stigma?
Well, I think, first of all, one of the biggest problems is that people feel that if you're going to go to therapy or something like that, that you are, excuse the expression, crazy or have some type of deep mental issue. So a lot of people neglect therapy for that reason. But therapy is becoming sort of like the new normal, so to speak, because people are going to therapy to just work through some of the challenges that they may be experiencing in life. Um, so we need to get rid of all the negative things that are
Mhm.
aligned with therapy and focus on some of the positive things that can happen through good therapy. Identifying who you are, um, setting goals for yourself, all those things like that can be accomplished through just some good therapy. And some people, believe it or not, just need someone to talk to.
Okay. Everyone, I personally feel, needs someone to speak with just to get whatever is bothering them off their chest. So, what made you decide to become a therapist?
Well, so I like the old cliche, I like to help people, but not only do I enjoy helping people, I realized that a lot of people really did just need to talk. I found myself before going into counseling, having a lot of friends and people call me and talk to me about, whatever is going on. They were always confident that what they said to me would remain with me. When, as a classroom teacher, other teachers were always sending me their students, oh, would you talk to this child? Will you talk to this child? So I began to think, oh, that must be a gift that I haven't tapped into yet. So that's what urged me to be a counselor.
Oh, truly so, truly so. How long have you worked in this field?
I've been a counselor now for 16 years, about 16 years.
Okay, so that's both in the school district and outside on your own, your private agency.
Yes, it was dual because when I actually got my first job as a community counselor before I became a school counselor. I was working in the school, but I hadn't actually become a school counselor yet.
Okay, okay. So, another question for our listeners this afternoon. What is your biggest accomplishment in this area?
I know this is going to sound funny to someone, but my biggest accomplishment has been to do telehealth. um, because I've always see myself as a face-to-face person, hands-on, want to talk to people. But with COVID-19 coming around, it has really changed my perspective on being able to reach out to people in more than one way. So telehealth has been a big accomplishment for me.
Okay, with the telehealth, now the telehealth came about during this pandemic.
Well, actually, it was prior to the pandemic, and
Okay.
it, I shouldn't say that. It was active prior to the pandemic, but I had never attempted to do telehealth until after the pandemic.
Okay. Okay. And how do you think your clients is the telehealth working, or how do you think they're receiving the telehealth since we have to practice social distancing?
Well, when I first started out to do the telehealth, um, and I realized I would be leaving the office, and I was telling my clients, I said, I'm going to be doing telehealth. I can still meet with you because some of them were mid-session. So I can still meet with you, but we will just have to meet over the internet. And a couple of them said, well, I'll just wait until after this is all over and then I'll start back with you. And of course I said, okay. But here we are 3-4 months down the line and we're still basically in the same position. Some of them have come back and they have received it as a way of doing things and they've adjusted quite well. I think for many of them, they didn't realize that it wasn't as scary as they thought it was going to be.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. So this afternoon, we're going to take a few minutes and speak about our children navigating their way through the COVID and then returning back to school. So I'm sure we have a few listeners that are parents that have children or that are aunties, just relatives out there that we can share some advice with. So what do you think your unique skill is that makes you successful?
Well, first of all, you have to be a good listener and you have to listen objectively. You can't judge people. You have to put whatever prejudices you have behind, and most of us have some type of prejudice one way or the other, but you have to put that behind and just begin to work with the individual because it's the individual that needs help. So
Right.
I feel that's a big skill.
So how can you use your skill with children today that's navigating through this pandemic, that may be fearful of returning to school, teachers being fearful of returning to school? What would you say to our listeners this afternoon?
Well, I've had a lot of people talking about this. And I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to prepare ourselves for going back. We're entering into something that we've never been involved in before. So we have to think about what things are going to look like. For the parents, it's going to be very important for them to start talking to their children now. If you're planning for your child to return to school in September, you need to start talking to your babies now. It needs to start even with simple things like going to purchase school supplies. And normally, well, some people buy their children hand sanitizer. I mean, that is on the school supply list now. That is something that you need to think about and how we're going to utilize the hand sanitizer. We need to talk to our children about what the bus ride to school would be like, because the bus ride to school is even going to be different. We're not going to all sit close together. You can't sit with your friend, when we get on the bus, everybody should be wearing masks. We need to talk about why do we have to wear a mask? Why do we have to wear gloves? And I mean, the spin side to that, we can add some fun to it. You can coordinate your mask to go with your school clothes, your outfits, your uniform. We need to talk to our children about what the classroom is going to look like. The teacher's going to be standing up there with the mask on. She may, throughout the day, wear gloves. Other students are going to be wearing masks. The desks are going to be separated. There's going to be a totally new look. Some of the people who have been our best friends or whatever in school, they may choose not to come back. Their parents may opt not to send them back. Some of the teachers may opt to not come back. So we have to make a lot of preparation before the students ever begin to go to work. Because like any good game, you have to practice, you know. And our children, we need to practice. We need to practice personal hygienes with our children, where they might not have been as careful about washing their hands. It's very important that you wash your hands every opportunity that you get. And when you can't wash your hands, you have to use your hand sanitizer. If you have a runny nose or something, that's a good day for you to stay home. You know, just simple things like that. One of the things that I always loved about working with children is they always like to share. They want to share with the teacher. They want to share with the other students. They love sharing. And I remember my girls, they always like to share lip gloss. We can't do that anymore. We can't share lip gloss. And we have to talk to our children about that. You can't try on my shoe. You can't, you know, it's going to be really, really different. And I think that we just have to prepare our children for it. Because if we don't prepare them for it, they will walk into the classroom and they will be totally traumatized by what is going on. Even though they've been wearing masks to the store, but to walk in a classroom and see all your friends masked up. So we need to start talking to the children about that. I think that if we are going to be returning to school in the fall, workshops should be in place right now for teachers and how they are going to handle the various things that may come up, the questions that are going to come up. Because students are going to have questions about, you know, why this, why that, you know, and they think the teachers are smart. They think the teachers are smarter than their parents. So they're going to expect their teachers to have answers to these questions. We have to realize that separation anxiety is going to be a real thing. And I'm not just talking about with the kindergartners or the smaller children. Some of our high schoolers are going to experience some type of separation anxiety because people are leaving so swiftly and so fast. They're not sure that you're going to be there when they get home.
And that brings another, excuse me for interrupting,
Mm-hmm.
those children who may have lost loved ones, parents, or grandparent, or cousins. What about the anxiety they may have about returning?
Once again, that's something that should be in the works right now. There are therapies that do grief counseling for students, and they should be involved in some type of grief counseling. I'm not sure if the camps open this year, but they used to have grief camps. And those are things that students should be involved in right now, not to mention to have counselors or social workers performing those type of group settings at school.
Okay. Do you feel the school this year would need more counselors and social workers on staff due to this pandemic, due to the fear right now of returning?
Well, I don't know what the counselor to student ratio is now that I'm not actually in the school system. But when I left, there was in most schools one counselor, one social worker. Few of them had two. But I would think that they do need more counselors, more social workers, because we want to handle our children as carefully as possible. And we want to be able to address whatever their needs are when the need is there, not have them to have to wait a long time before they can get help. Because for many of them, the only place they can get that type of help is at school.
Right, right. Today they had, I read in the paper, I think it was CNN that I heard it, I didn't read it, where teachers in Texas are saying they're writing their wills upon returning to the classroom. So what would you say to a teacher that's fearful of returning? Because the teacher fears going home and infecting her household, her family, her children. So what would you say to teachers that's listening today?
Well, I think for all of us to have a will is a good thing, pandemic or no pandemic. I mean, we should not leave our affairs in a mess. But to write the will strictly on the premises that I'm going back to work and I know I might get killed, that's not a good thing, because that indicates to me that there's some fear, there's some uncomfortableness with returning to work. So to a teacher, I would ask them to really consider if this is something that they want to do. I'm not trying to call anyone out of the profession, but I mean, going back to work and you're afraid and you're dealing with all kinds of anxiety, those things can materialize in physical illness as well.
True. So would you say that even for there's someone that needs to be on staff for the teachers to talk to? Do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. I do believe that the teacher should have someone, and well, they have their employee assistant plan where they can go and seek therapy, but they may need someone to be readily available within the building.
Okay, okay. Good. We thank you. And what do you feel during this COVID? How do you feel being out of school for so long, being in the house? How have it impacted the children? How do you feel it impacted the children's lives?
Well, for some, it's a good thing. For others, it's not. I've been talking to a family, and they have 3 children. The son is in preschool, and they have one daughter, this is her first year in high school, and another daughter who this was her last year in elementary school. So for the child that was the last year in elementary school, she really missed school. She
Hmm.
really wants to go back to school and be with her friend. For the child who's in high school, it's kind of, well, it really didn't matter. And for the son, who is so young, he's in preschool, but I don't think it really matters to him. He knows he missed playing with his friends. So I said all that to say that for each child, it's going to be different.
Hmm.
For some children who don't have a whole lot to do at home, um, they may want to go back to school. For some children who their parents ran a strict boot camp academy, they may be glad to go back to school. So it just depends on what the circumstances were in the home. Some children who have not done anything at all, just kind of laid around and watched TV programs, they may not care if they go back or not. This is pretty good, watching TV and playing videos all day.
So, what about the parents that have special needs children? I know a couple of our listeners that may have special needs. And how do you think? I know that affected the kid, the
Mhm.
child, and it also affected the parent as well, because now the parent doesn't have the programs, the assistance during the day that she had when schools were open and when the child was able to participate in different special need programs.
Mhm. Mhm. I'm sure that can be very taxing on the parent. Um, and I, I know especially if the parent is working and they have a job that they're trying to work from home and do. Um, I don't know. I'm really at a loss for words for that. I would think that the parent would just try to put in as much time with the child as they can, kind to, you know, partner on certain things, give them little time limits because many special needs children, you can't give them activities gonna last 2 weeks. You've got to give them something they can do in 5 minutes and then come back to you. So you, as a parent, you have to be very, very flexible.
Okay, okay. I hope that helps some of our listeners this afternoon. Mrs. Pearson, tell me, what do you wish you had known starting out in this field to inspire some young listener that may dream of becoming a therapist or in college right now?
Um, I guess starting out, I didn't realize the need for therapy was as great as it is. I knew there was a need, but I didn't know it was as great as it is. And so I casually began to do it. I love what I do, but I just kind of casually began to do it and did not see the need was so great. Had I realized earlier on, I think I would have been more aggressive in pursuing this type of work, but I didn't realize it was quite that big of a need.
Okay. Okay. So tell us, what inspires you? What is your inspiration to continue to work in this field? What inspires you on a daily basis?
On a daily basis, my clients inspire me. Um, they let me know that they appreciate whatever I have to say or whatever activities that we do. And when their designated time is up, or their insurance runs out, or whatever, and they say, "Well, Miss Pearson, I still want to meet with you. I still want to us to have these talks." That inspires me, and it helps me to realize that I must be doing something right. I must be on the right road.
All right. Planting the seed in someone's life, helping them to grow.
Yes.
Okay. What would you say to someone that may be listening right now and want to become a therapist? What advice would you give them right now?
I would tell them to do a self check. Um, First of all, do you like people? Because some people really don't like people. They think they like people, but they don't like people. So do a self check. You like people. Um, Earlier I said, you have to put your prejudices behind you. Can you look over the fact that this person is doing this or they're doing that, and just be willing to come back and try it another day? I would say that those are two really big things that you need to do. First of all, check yourself. Make sure you're a good listener. Make sure that you can give that person your undivided attention. We're in a society where we're so oriented toward multitasking. Make sure
Hmm.
that when you're talking to your client, you're talking to your client. And that's a big challenge for some people because we're so engaged in so many other things. But at that moment, that person needs you, and everything else kind of has to just wait.
Okay, okay. And then what would you say to someone before we end here that may be afraid to speak with a therapist? What would you say to them where they feel comfortable calling and coming in?
First of all, I ask them, what are you afraid of? And then after I ask them what they're afraid of, then I would begin to ask them if they would be willing to deal with those fears. Because I think the biggest fear that people have of talking to a therapist is being judged.
Hmm.
Um, and so sometimes, we have to make them feel comfortable, know that we're going to listen to them, we're going to be objective, and we're not going to judge them. Because people do make mistakes, and sometimes we make them because we don't know any better. So I would try to make them feel comfortable.
And what about the myth of, and crazy, or I hate to use that word, or there's a problem with me? How would you help them remove that myth?
We just talk about it because all of us have one problem or another. I mean, when you think about it, some people wear hearing aids, some people wear glasses. We've all got something that we are constantly working on. And sometimes for people, an inability to strategize your journey through life, it causes a problem. So I would just try to get them to realize that there's some tools out there to help you, just like someone who
Mhm.
doesn't see well. I don't see well, so I wear glasses. There are other tools out there. Some people experience a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. Let's put some things in place to help you get beyond that anxiety, get beyond that stress.
Okay. Well, first of all, Mrs. Pearson, I would like to thank you for taking time out your busy schedule and being our guest this afternoon on the Diamond Girls Rock podcast. I would like to thank you for doing such a fantastic, marvelous job and helping our children, our listeners that's out there who are parents, aunties, the relatives. I'm sure the information you shared this afternoon can assist someone with making their decision on returning back to work, and also assist someone who feels that they need someone to talk to and cannot locate anyone. That you are available, people are available within our community to help them to build themselves. Also, the last, how can our listeners contact you and support you. Give us a way, our listeners, a way where they can contact you directly and support you if they want to do the telehealth or if they would like to just talk. How can they contact you?
Well, you can contact me at area code 313-682-9071. That's 313-682-9071. I can also be reached on my email address, which is lspthomas at aol.com. lspthomas at aol.com.
All right, listeners, you heard it. You can reach her once again at area code 313-682-9071. And if you want to email her a question and set up a telehealth, you can also email her at lspthomas at aol.com. Once again, we thank you. We
Thank you.
thank you all for listening, and we hope everyone have a good afternoon.